Shock and mourning across the nation of Israel as worshipers returned to a Jerusalem synagogue. It was the scene of a vicious attack on a group of Orthodox Jews in prayer. Two Palestinian cousins stormed the synagogue armed with guns and meat cleavers in a bloody massacre that left 5 people dead, including a police officer who responded to the carnage. Jewish residents across the region gathered in grief. Thousands turned out for the funerals of the victims, 3 of them American citizens. On the other side of the border, in Gaza City, a much different scene. Muslims celebrating in the streets, praising the attackers through mosque loudspeakers. We welcome now Ron Dermer, Israel's ambassador to the United States. Ambassador Dermer, our condolences to you, first of all, in the wake of this attack.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it very much.
Israel has announced that the homes of the 2 Palestinian men who carried out the attack are going to be demolished. Now, that is something that Israel had suspended since, I think, something like 2005. What's the expectation about doing that?
Well, our security services recommend these types of actions because they tend to deter these attacks. Unfortunately, we faced many of them in the past. Hopefully, we won't face that many in the future. But Israel will have to do what it has to do in order to protect its citizens in its capital. What you saw yesterday was a savage attack where people came in, as you said, murdered Jews in a synagogue. And unfortunately, while Israel is in mourning today, Palestinians are celebrating, both in Gaza and in the West Bank. And we hope the world will send a very strong message, John, to the Palestinian leadership that these types of celebrations are unacceptable, that they have to unequivocally condemn these attacks. They can't mince words. They have to be very, very forceful. President Abbas should end his alliance with a Hamas terror organization that he currently is in a government with, and he should stop the incitement against Israel, which led to this horrific attack.
There have been others, as you well know, the drivers who have been plowing into Israeli pedestrians, and some of those have been killed. Is there a new wave of sort of lone wolf terrorists trying to attack Israel?
Well, we hope not. We've had a number of instances, as you mentioned, where people have been killed. By the way, one of those who was killed yesterday was an Israeli Druze. That's an Arab-speaking community. They're not Muslims. The Druze community in Israel, and it was a police officer who went into this synagogue in order to protect those Jews who were being slaughtered, and he got killed himself. We also lost a Druze member of the Israeli Defense Forces who was run over in a previous attack. So we appreciate the Druze community in Israel that are partners with Israel in building our future. We appreciate the sacrifice they've made in protecting and defending Israel. What we have to see, John, is we have to see a change within Palestinian society. This culture of hatred and incitement and violence has to end. What you saw, the scenes that you saw dancing in the streets, which, by the way, happened after 9/11. The same Palestinians who were dancing in the streets today when Jews were savagely murdered in a synagogue were dancing after 9/11 when 3,000 Americans lay dead. Yeah. The whole world, the whole civilized world has to stand together with Israel and send a very clear message to the Palestinian leadership that these things are unacceptable, that the civilized world will not accept your claims, will not listen to your grievances until you take a clear stand against terrorism and against evil.
This is a people that professes to want its own state. There is a movement afoot in the United Nations to declare some kind of a unilateral Palestinian state. If this is the kind of behavior that you're getting from Palestinians, I mean, what does that say about the state of the world and its view toward these kinds of acts?
Well, you know, the Spanish Parliament met today and they voted to recognize a Palestinian state. Instead of standing together as the Spanish Parliament and standing in solidarity with Israel and condemning this act, they just said to President Abbas, the leader of the Palestinians, here's your state on a silver platter. You can sit in a government with a bunch of terrorists, you can incite violence and hatred against Israel, and we'll give you a state. What message does that send to the Palestinians, John? It sends a message that they don't have to do anything, that they can continue down the path of terrorism and still get a state. The only way the Palestinians should be given a state is in the context of a peace treaty with Israel. Israel will oppose any effort to unilaterally give the Palestinians a state. It's the wrong thing to do. It sets back peace. The Palestinians have to understand that the path towards peace is in negotiations with Israel where there are mutual compromises. That's the only way that we're going to be able to move this forward. What just happened in the Spanish Parliament and what the Europeans are doing is setting the cause of peace back.